Excited to get to know you. There's been a lot of support and a lot of fervor in the district around you and your run, and definitely you've gotten to be popular. I guess that's not a Southern California accent I'm hearing. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and kind of your story about how you got here, because it is one that's very interesting as far as people running for state senate. We don't have a lot of people that are, they're all American citizens. However, none of them have some of the background that you have, and I think it's really interesting. Tell us about where.
Sure. Yeah. So you don't think that's a Truckee accent?
I just didn't know if that was,
No?
Eastern
Okay.
Oregon.
Okay. So it's German. So I came here in 1994 because I did an internship in Connecticut with United Technologies a long time ago. That was prerequisite for my engineering studies. The internship was not the Connecticut thing. I fell in love with America, and I really wanted to come back. So I finished my PhD in Germany, and the place where I did my PhD started opening US dependencies. And so I was the second person of the company to go to the US, and I ended up in Michigan. I bought a 5-liter Mustang convertible, which was not really a good car for Michigan winters. But it was, the American dream. I lived the American dream. And so I was there for 3 years, and then I couldn't deal with the winters anymore. And I drove my Mustang out here, and I was in Silicon Valley for a number of years. I worked for a startup, small company, let's put it that way. We got big during the telecom boom. We went on to be part of the largest tech merger at that time. And we then went to 30,000 people after the merger. And then 3 years later, we were at 4,000 people. And it was like, okay, it's time to leave the crazy corporate world. So what I did then for 12 years, I think, was to work with European companies and establish them in the US. And I did that very successfully. I was responsible for payroll. I was responsible for getting health insurance, but I was also responsible just to get the companies up and running. And so by the time they reached a certain size and it felt corporate again, I would usually say, okay, it's enough, and I would find the next company I could do that for. So I have an engineering background, which really brings me the looking at details and the scientific foundations of things, but I also have the business person background that looks at how can we survive and how are we going to make the next quarter and what does it take to get this company going. And then I had breast cancer, and I decided to take it a little slower, and because it's interesting when you're confronted with your mortality. So I was lucky enough to say I'll take a timeout, and somehow that timeout became starting Tahoe, Truckee Indivisible, and eventually for this run for Senate.
And what was it about the campaign that 2 years ago that really got you going with that? What was it that you saw that 3 years ago? I mean, that really made you say, I want to jump in there and begin to organize and take the experience I have and bring it into the political realm, because I assume you'd never really been in the political realm.
To me, politics was always a spectator sport, not a hand-to-hand combat that it's now. So to me, it was really worrying to see that sentiment against immigrants, against people of color, to see the focus on, how can we lower taxes for companies. But I mean, in fact, for pretty much most of us in California, that big tax cut ended up with higher tax bills. I don't know. I just did my taxes, and it's looking not good. So I just really wanted to stand up for the people, for our values, and that's also what led me to run for Congress, because I think what's really important is to stand for everyday people and not for, corporations, not for companies, whether they're insurance companies or oil companies or who knows what. It's important to stand for the people in the district.
And talk about that. Talk about the district, the composition of the district a little bit. I mean, what the geographic composition of the district is, what the boundaries of it are, and who is in that district.
Yeah, so it's one of the largest districts in California in terms of area. All California Senate districts have just shy of 1 million people, because we have 40 senators, we have 39 million people living in the state. It's ginormous. It starts up in Siskiyou County, it goes along the Oregon border, then comes down the Sierra, excludes Butte County, and goes to south of Lake Tahoe all the way to every single inhabitant of Alpine County, all 1,250 of them. But it also has a large area in the Sacramento suburbs. So it's all of El Dorado County. It has Folsom in it, Orangevale, and then 57% of Plaza County. So Rocklin, Loomis, Auburn, and then all of Nevada County.
Big,
so
yeah.
It's big, yeah. And it has very different, it's almost like running a few different campaigns, because the people in the Sacramento suburbs have a very different view on things than the people in Redding have, than the people in Siskiyou County have. Even between Redding and Siskiyou County, there's huge differences. But what it brings pretty much everybody together is we have to improve on fire resiliency, and we have to have better health care, and we need to improve the jobs picture, though that's probably a little bit more important in the rural areas, because the rural areas and the North State, they're bleeding kids. So that's, it's water, and kids are their biggest exports.